Greg Ehrenberg here from Awesemo.com. I'm filling in for Adam to do his MLB tournament strategy plays videos. Going to be doing them all of this week for him. Do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you guys have not signed up at Prize Picks for the first time, if you do so using the promo code Awesemo, you get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. Really good way to help build your bankroll. But let's start by hitting on the top tournament plays for the Monday night Memorial Day slate over on DraftKings. I'm going to start with one of my favorite contrarian stacks of the day, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers, who there's not very many slates that we could get them for limited ownership, and that's what we have today. Small six-game slate. They're only projected for 7.4% ownership, 10.2% chance to be a top stack, and there's kind of a limited opportunity cost today in terms of paying up for offenses because there aren't that many high-end pitchers to get to. There is one that I'm going to highlight later as a contrarian tournament option. But beyond that, we've got Walker Bueller, the starter for the Dodgers. He's going to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. He is limited cost today. So I don't think it's that problematic to pay up for offense. And anytime you could get this Dodgers offense at somewhat limited ownership, especially on a small slate, I think it makes sense. They're one of the most positively leveraged offense on the entire slate in our top stacks tool. And why would they not be when it's the Dodgers at lower ownership? They have a 120 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. They've won 13 of their last 15 games. And just overall from top to bottom, this lineup is pretty stacked. The next low-owned stack option I like getting to is the Tampa Bay Rays. They're going up against Glenn Otto, who's not been good this year really at all. 4.91 ERA. The underlying numbers also don't look great. 4.94 FIP. He doesn't really miss a lot of bats, limited swing and miss stuff. He also generally doesn't work all that deep into games. So I think this is a pretty good spot for the Rays on paper. And once again, a lower owned offense with some firepower and in a positive matchup. 4.1% ownership as a team, 7% top stack odds. The Rays and the Dodgers, those are my two favorite tournament stacks for today that we can get at reasonable ownership. Moving on over to the pitchers now, one guy I'm going to highlight, and I mentioned before when I was talking about the Dodgers being a top stack, that there isn't that much opportunity cost in terms of paying up for pitcher on DK. The reason being is that the most expensive pitcher is Drew Rasmussen. Well, I don't think is a priority play. I do think he's going a little bit under-owned because of the matchup he has against the Texas Rangers and just overall positive results from Rasmussen this year. And by the way, starting with his ownership, 4.9% ownership today on DK. That's his projected number, with a 22.3% chance to be the top scoring pitcher on the slate. Now, you look at Rasmussen's numbers this year, they're pretty solid. 2.68 ERA, 2.91 FIP, 23.7% K rate. He's quietly been one of the better pitchers in the American League. And then as for his matchup against the Texas Rangers, I've really thought Texas was going to have a good offense this year. They signed Corey Seager, Marcus Semien in the offseason. It just hasn't mattered. The Texas Rangers remain the Texas Rangers. They've not been able to put runs up on the board this year against right-hand pitching, 95 WRC plus and a 22.4% strikeout rate against right-hand pitching. So we've got Rasmussen, a kind of overlooked pitcher, not really picking up much ownership. Also in a positive matchup against the Rangers. I think this is a good spot to pay up to be contrarian at pitcher. But I also think there's reason that we could get a little bit contrarian if we go cheap at pitcher with Rich Hill. He's one of the cheaper pitchers on DraftKings today. He's only projected for 3.8% ownership. But here's what I really like about Rich Hill, because his individual numbers don't look great. He's not really generating a lot of strikeouts this year, 16.7%. I know none of that is great news, but he's a matchup against the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore, 29th in baseball with a 77 WRC plus against left-handed pitching and a 26.2% K rate against southpaws. So they are swinging and missing a bunch against lefties. And another thing to consider with Rich Hill, he hasn't really had much upside this year, other than the fact that he hasn't pitched all that well, but also because he generally hasn't worked deep into games. It looks like the training wheels are kind of starting to come off with Rich Hill. I know he's 42 years old. We're not going to expect him to pitch complete games, but we have seen recent starts where he's thrown 6 and 5 innings. So there is reason to think there's a little bit more upside in the length of his starts than what we were getting earlier in the season. So those are some of my favorite tournament plays. Smaller slate today, but the Dodgers and Rays, two good contrarian offenses, and then a pitcher, Drew Rasmussen, good option to pay up to be contrarian, and Rich Hill. If you're looking for a cost-effective salary-saving play at low ownership, we get Rich Hill at 3.8%. That is going to do it for today's DraftKings tournament plays. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave a comment below. Who are some of your favorite tournament plays of the day?